as Head and VP HR of BMC. He is based in Pune and loves to call himself a true global Indian. Welcome, Shashank. So,
thank you, Alok.
Wave your hand, and here Shashank Bhushan, the VP HR of BMC Software. Our next panelist hails from the southern Indian city of Coimbatore. Known for its entrepreneurial fervor, he grew up cutting his teeth on few ventures he founded with his friends. Startup culture is not very new. It has been many, many years back, and our panelist is a great example for that. Like many spirited young men full of energy and dreams, he thought himself as a budding entrepreneur, but surprised himself and his friends when he turned up all suited and booted at the doors of his first employer, ready to start as a professional manager, unwilling, yet compliant. Those days, parents probably knew better that getting a good bride for their children depended on a stable job instead of entrepreneurial ambitions. So that's where 27 years back, the whole thing changed. And the journey what he undertook very reluctantly over the years, he has made peace with his professional life, and he is much less reluctant as a leading banker now. Meet Mr. Ram Gopal, CEO of Barclays India, who ensures that his first love for entrepreneurship is used in large companies to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, and making the elephant dance. We all agree it's a truly challenging task. Ram is based out of Mumbai, and today staying in Mumbai is also a challenging task. Welcome, Ram Gopal, for this webinar.
Thank you, Alok. Nice of you to have me in your program.
All right. So we come to our third and the last panelist. So our third panelist is now known. We have only three here, apart from me. So it's very easy to guess whom I'm talking about. So he was also called Apollo by his parents, born on the day Neil Armstrong took a giant leap for mankind. So it's very easy to recall, Apollo. Having lived in Gorakhpur, Delhi, and Bangalore, wherein his father identified himself from UP. In India, we say UP wala. And he identifying himself from Delhi, that's Delhi wala. And his daughters identifying themselves from Bangalore. Now, he is happily aligned to his daughters, just like any loving father would do. People in our age surrender to our children, rather will love to surrender for our children the way our panelist has done. And just to going back, he and his brother were commanded at an early age to go to IIT by their IITian father, right? And those days, children would rarely not do what their father would have asked them to do. But somehow he escaped. He escaped engineering, he escaped IIT to pick up an MBA and ventured into consulting, and from there into banking, analytics, and strategy, following the advice of his friends, well-wishers, and the most important, advice of his heart. Today, he is a senior VP of strategy in Wells Fargo, based out of Bangalore. On the way, he picked up marathon, cycling, and badminton, and through that, a diverse network of friends, knowledge, and too many things. He's a TED speaker, an author, a strategist, and a health enthusiast. Pankaj is a trove of knowledge that people would like to listen to. Welcome, Pankaj, to this webinar.
Thank you, Alok.
All right. So here we start. We have our three panelists. Shashank, I would rather start with you, and I'll put the first question to you. So you have been an HR leader all the time. You have the pulse of people. You know people better than most of us. And before taking over the head of BMC in India, how do you see these permanent changes, what you're seeing, the few permanent changes in the employees post-COVID? And in your opinion, will that be for better or just a compromise for the employees and companies?
Well, Alok, thank you very much. And as you know, as the opening batsman, I expected a bouncer. This is actually a curling in swinging toe cruncher. And I say so because what you're asking is about the future state. It's like you crystal gaze and say, what is this going to be in post-COVID era? How are people going to be? And think of it, we are right in the middle of the COVID crisis. I just heard today that in Pune, there's going to be another lockdown for 2 weeks, tentatively not confirmed yet. And we're thinking about how it's going to be in the post-COVID scenario. So I will just take a stab at it in a slightly, the way I see it. I think there's going to be a far-reaching impact on the employees. First and foremost, I think almost everybody is going to become a lot more comfortable working from anywhere, anytime. This concept about work anywhere, anytime has existed for 10, 15 years now. But it actually took its real roots in the last 3 or 4 months, because it's demonstrated now that technology is available. The infrastructure, we have cursed the Indian infrastructure for long enough just to be pleasantly surprised that it has held itself very strong, whether it's power or whether it is broadband. And people are able to work from anywhere. I've got people from my company who are living in their hometowns right now, small cities, and they are as effective as anybody else. I think that's a big change. It's a big change for managers, because now they have to become used to, or they're becoming used to working and getting their employees to do things without their being in the line of sight. But that also brings a lot of onus on the employees. Many times when people will say, I've done so much of work, because I was in the meetings, I was, you could have seen me, my head down, I was working 10 hours in the office, and subah 8 baje aaya, raat ki 11 baje gaya, that kind of stuff. I think now work will become a lot more outcome oriented, because nobody would care, when did you start, when did you end? It will become a lot more and say, what were you supposed to do and what have you done? And therefore, a lot of self-discipline is going to come into the employees, because nobody is going to come and coach them and say, do this or do that. I think that's a very positive change, which will happen. All of us are also seeing that we have a lot more time at hand today, by virtue of the fact that an hour or 2 hours of commute is gone. That's bringing a lot more time for all of us, and it's for good, because otherwise, think of it, we have always been complaining that we don't have time. We don't have time for our health. We don't have time for our families. We don't have time for anything virtually, and because we are so engrossed with work. So, I think so. That's a positive change. People are going to spend a lot of time with their families. Whether it's good or bad, I think it will vary by people. It will also bring in a lot of stress on the relationships at home. Because you're in your face with your spouse or your parents, or your siblings, your kids all day long. No escape for them, no escape for yourself. And of course, the bond that people feel and have with their colleagues is something that is something that they're going to miss. Now, the interesting part is that we are talking about the COVID situation really getting over in next 12, 15, 18 months timeline. Nobody knows when it's going to get over. By that time, I think we will have built up new muscle memory of how to be operative and be successful in a time when you're no longer with your colleagues in person. So virtual collaboration, virtual whiteboarding, ideating session, which today in the pre-March era would have been unimaginable. To think of you're going to for a release of a product or a version, you can't imagine not being together for hours and hours together. But now it's happening. Everything is happening in a virtual world. So I think that those are some changes that people will feel at a professional level. At a personal level, the fact that there was a WhatsApp joke that was circulated some time back that somebody made a resume and said, I've got office at home infrastructure ready. I think it's no longer a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, this will probably become a standard question in an interview or on your resume to say, what kind of office infrastructure have you built here? Obviously, right now the organizations are helping you build whatever you can. But over a period of time, earlier when people bought their homes or designed their interiors, they thought about working from home for like half an hour a day, or maybe on the weekends. So you could buy any chair, you could possibly work on your dining table or you're in bed. But today you have to really plan it. You'll have to plan that you have a proper workstation, appropriate lighting, the setting that you need to be productive. Whether you need a printer or those things which we never thought about. Maybe a redundancy on your broadband, because that's your lifeline. If that goes,
Correct.
your power backups, those things which you outsource to your office will be something that will have to be managed by the employees. Uh, to some extent, it's a win-win for employers and the employees, because the pressure on real estate goes down at some level here, which is a saving in an economy which has shown decline and slide down. I think this is all good for the companies and as well for the employees. But of course, anything in excess is a challenge. Any medication that you take over a period of time has its own side effects, and we'll have to see how that plays out on at a psychological level. At how do you learn? How do you stay engaged and connected with an organization that you no longer see? Those will be the ones which will be tougher to answer, and only time will tell how people are going to fare on that. I think it was a long-winded answer, but
Yeah, no, it is.
when you crystal gaze,
right.
you see a lot of things.
Actually, because it's very difficult to figure out. We are right in the middle of things. It is going up and down, and we really don't know, is there any end to it, or we have to just learn to live with it. So it is like that only. But taking it forward, I think I would now go to Pankaj, because he's a strategist. I know that's very important for a strategist. I have to ask a question to a strategist to figure out what's coming next. So I would just say, Pankaj, being part of the banking institution, how do you see this change will impact economy and companies financially? And how long is it going to last? Is it going to just stand with it? If you can just throw some light on it.
I get worried with all these labels of economist, strategist, futurist, all of that, because most of them are all very abusive labels. They always get it wrong. So anyway, so my view is on two, three different things. One is, I see this pandemic actually as a new normal, which is already there, and not something that we should wait and see where it will go. Because a lot of people are thinking of this as, okay, so when will we get back? And my view is, get back to what? To me, there's nothing. This is it. And we have to
Yeah.
start from here. And to some extent, when people start predicting, I say that, let's not predict. Let's create the future that we want. So I think it's about thinking about the future slightly differently. I think we have all been trained to predict things. I like to say that let's not predict things. We should predict. We should be aware of what's happening. But let's think of our contribution in that future, because the prediction is very passive. You are not contributing to it. Someone else is giving it to you. So my view is, how do you contribute to that future prediction or prescription or whatever? That is the way I would look at it. And I think that just changes the dynamic, because now suddenly you are in control and you are driving that agenda. So that's one mindset change I would recommend to whoever, to say, yeah, let's not wait. And we see there's nothing new that I'm saying. We keep saying this when other crises have happened. But I think this is, to some extent, one can say, either a permanent crisis or just a new normal. You were at a pedestal, you came down, you have to just walk up. The airline industry will see the same level of traffic 5 years later. We all know that. That is very predictable. So there's no point in the airline industry thinking that, oh, when will it come back? We know you are back to 2014. So start behaving as it was, bring your cost down to that level, do whatever you have to. And same for everyone else. So that is one line of thinking on how do you think about it, how do you approach it, and all of that. The second thing is about, you spoke about the economy, the banking, all of that, and banking, I'm part of the banking sector, both in the US and India. I have friends. Banking is just an enabler of the economy. If the overall economy starts to shrink, banking can't go anywhere else. We have lent money to people who will be unable to pay it back. New people will not take money. There'll be less money movement, all of that. So banking can't make all those revenues happen. Many people who wanted to invest their money will hold it back, keep it in cash, not give it to our wealth manager, and so on and so forth. So you can just imagine banking as that, and they will also suffer like everyone else. So I think that, we are all talking about the 90% economy and so on and so forth. But that 10% gap that has happened, it is actually 70-80% for many people, and much lesser for some others. So I worry more about those things which has totally gone, and I can look at the future based on my own personal consumption pattern over the last 3 months. I used to go to Delhi every month to meet my parents. So the airlines are not getting my money. The Uber driver is not getting my money. I'm not going to office, so I'm not buying any clothes. I'm not going to the mall. I used to go to PVR to watch a movie every weekend. The multiplex is not getting my money. So the only few people who are getting my money are the grocery people and these internet people, because I had to buy Wi-Fi, I had to buy some UPS. So I think that, that and I have now buying some stands for myself and for my computers. So I think the money spent has been only on this. It's good to have a very small credit card bill, but I worry about all the people that we had employed to serve us, and now we are not buying their stuff. So I see that, but I don't see there is any respite from out of it. And people have to reinvent. The best reinvention story I have for you is my Book My Show. And I used to use Book My Show, like, I would see 3 movies on a weekend. They have reinvented themselves to become a streaming service. They are going to people who are doing plays and saying, you know what, we can live stream your plays. Now it's not the same. Not everyone will come, but still people who want to see the play or a match or whatever. So I think we all have to look at this new normal as a new normal and just reinvent ourselves. Book My Show is my, poster boy to say, how do you reinvent as a business? And I think I look at myself to say, how do I reinvent myself as an individual, and so on.
So in a way, that very smoothly moves to the question which I am planning to put to you is like, uh, again, because you have that mindset. I would say yes, strategic mindset. It's important because most of the people look forward. Okay, what next? It's like a crystal gazing. So I'd say, what do you see as the traits of successful companies in this change scenario, when entire economy and international trade dynamics, arising primarily out of this China issue now, which has come suddenly, while COVID was already there and is still unfolding. What would companies must do or reorient to be successful in post-COVID ecosystem? So in your way, what do you think that way?
So I'll bring up, there was a 5C framework that I had created for my daughter 3 years ago on what characters she should adapt. And then I later felt that that applies to me. And then I later felt it applies to pretty much anyone, whether you are a country or a company. Because the fundamental of the derivation of that framework was, what are the 5 things which are going to be in short supply and high demand, and therefore should be at a premium? And if that be the case, you might as well acquire it, whether you are a country, company, individual, whatever. So here are those 5 things that I had seen which were getting to be in short supply and therefore high demand. So the first trend really was about a very predictable linear world where even our exam papers, where there are these 5 questions, please answer it. So we were rewarded for answering questions, not for searching the right question to answer. And my favorite would be that tell me the question that you should serve in your math paper and now solve it. I'll give you half the marks for the question you selected, the other half for the solutions. But we haven't been trained that way. But we all know that we are in that era already. The world is totally the VUCA world, all of that. So the questions are also new. And unless you find the right question, you can't be the right answer. So I would say that curiosity to me is the first C, which is very critical. In the past, the curiosity was all about finding the answer. But I think the curiosity about finding the right question is the first C to me that I see. The second one is related to deglobalization as the new trend. Earlier, it was more globalization. And I think globalization, of course, created a lot of value, but that value didn't trickle down to the masses. And of course, now the politicians have seized the opportunity to tell you that, hey, you didn't get it, we'll get you back. But the best way to do it by, deglobalization. We'll keep everything inside my state, inside my company, inside my house. I'll not let any stranger come in and take away your. That's the nice selling point that everyone has come up with, and everyone is buying it, by the way. So therefore, the second C to me, which is in short supply, is really compassion. Then more thinking about the broader picture, thinking about other people, the environment, that is in short supply. While we know today that all the problem facing the world, green or terrorism, whatever, requires collaboration, requires compassion, but we are going in the other direction. So to me, therefore, that is the second C, which I think we need to acquire because it is at a premium. The third one is really related to the choices. In our days, we had 2 choices, engineer, doctor. In my case, I hated biology. So I just was grateful that I could get engineering. You did not get your Lambretta, you got a Vespa. You didn't like one or you didn't get one, you took the other one, Foreign toothpaste or Colgate. We had 2 choices. We just were grateful to have one. Now, 100 vectors and 100 choices in that, everyone is crazy. So we don't know how to make choices. Any choice you make, you feel unsatisfied. And we are seeing a lot of mental illness, suicides, all these kinds of things in today's world. So to me, therefore, the third C, which is in short supply, is really conviction, which is the belief in yourself. Because beyond a point, unless you come from the inside out, it's very hard for you to do anything. And we have been also bogged down by the external world that C is sort of in short supply. The fourth one is related to this VUCA and non-linear world. Earlier, life was simple. You went straight forward. You could do continuous improvement. You knew the race. Toyota did, daily morning huddles and could beat Ford and General Motors because daily they were improving 0.1%. And Tesla and Amazon came, what business are you in? They just changed the game. Yeah. In that world, the C, which is in short supply, is really creativity. So that is the fourth C that comes to mind. And the fifth one is really in this whole, noisy world, communication. Whatever you have done, how do you also communicate? So again, just to repeat, and I see that in that order: curiosity, compassion, conviction, creativity, and communication. This five C's to me appears to be a characteristic or a way of life. If we are able to acquire as individuals, as millennials, as companies, as countries, to me it seems to be applicable at any level of aggregation, Alok. And that's how I've started to think about it. After giving this gyan to my daughter, I said, hey, that's important for me. Then I started telling all my friends, and now today you have helped me elevate it to a company or a country level, which I had not thought of, but I think it is as applicable there.
So it's a very wonderful input, that 5C. In my earlier days when I was in manufacturing, the 5C was more about quality control, So when it stuck to me, I said 5C is about quality. But in a way, it is a quality, but then it is more about quality of way of life, a way of doing work. So it's a very apt thing. And frankly speaking, what I personally feel, our education system, not only ours, I mean, most of the world education system has not been tuned to basically make people critically think. And I think this is a big test. It has been thrust upon us very, very fast to reorient and, check out what to do. So, moving on to the next question, I think, Ram, I'm going to be asking you that is like, already Pankaj explained his 5C and, how companies should be changing to reorient themselves. It's no more about COVID, but also the China angle. China, why I'm talking? Because China was the factory of the world. And you see the kind of tension and the problems, coming up. You see Hong Kong issue, this issue, that issue, so many things. And it is impacting a lot of people. And then suddenly government of India banned 59, apps. And then there is something else happening. A lot of people are talking about many things. How do you see that in terms of opportunities and to a threat to the jobs and the workforce job seeker, it will happen globally and particularly in India. Why globally? Because we have audience from other countries also at this time, and so that's something which I would like you to probably throw light
on. Thank you, Alok. I think the first place to start is perhaps try and think about how our primary effort under this crisis is very similar to our effort through many crises that not just us, but the generations before us have gone through. Because that, I think, gives us a sense of comfort. And then we'll quickly talk about opportunities and threats. So I think in my mind, the way I think about that is any great social change is accompanied with a tension between continuity on one side and the need for innovation on the other. We are 20 years into this new century, and even in the last 20 years, one could think about many examples where there has been radical alteration in the way of work, way we think about politics, economy, art, society. And there are also, systems that have persevered, that have been preserved, that have shown tenacious durability. Therefore, I think, if you think about this, and even, you introduced me as somebody who's passionate about bringing innovation in large companies. I think even in large companies before COVID, we were talking about something similar, right? We have a core business where we've got a lot of investment, we've got a lot of clients, we've got lots of revenues. Any dollar that you move away from our core business and put into a bet for the future of what future might look like seems to be like a waste of those investment dollars, right? Because there is already an engine that's working smoothly. Why invest in something as this engine A versus engine B conversation? So in social change, or where there is lots of, shall I say, perturbation around us, I think our primary effort is, as I described, trying to find the balance between change on one side and conservation on the other side. I think that's how I'm thinking about this in a mental makeup. You spoke about opportunities and threats, and threat it's in the press almost. It's kind of devouring us. Layoffs, furloughs, loss of pay. I think safety concerns, health concerns. I think the threats are maybe obvious, and I think maybe we shouldn't spend too much time talking about that. But let me try and build on the opportunities side. And my hope is that the opportunity is that we, through this particular pandemic, we generate an economy that is grateful, a kinder economy, an economy that is not just based on shareholder capitalism, but much broader stakeholder capitalism, or conscious capitalism, as various terms are being coined. And I was, this was in my mind, and I chanced to read Adam Grant in an article in The Economist, and he talks about the three things that he hopes would happen, as we navigate this crisis. The first one he talks about is job satisfaction, and I like that. And he says that research suggests that people who have got jobs at times of heightened unemployment are very grateful because they've got that opportunity, which is equally deserving of many others. And they tend to feel satisfied about their jobs, not just at that point in time, but 5 years hence, 10 years hence, 15 years hence. And some of us, amidst all this noise around us about how this is such a serious situation, I think we're grateful that we've got our jobs and our paychecks. And I think it will make us less narcissistic, less self-centered. And that's my hope. So job satisfaction, I think for those of us who have some jobs, I think it's just going to shoot up. And that's what he hopes. It is conversely linked to job quality, but if there is a follow-up question, we can come to that. The next aspect is ethical leadership, and I think we covered some of it when I laid out between conscious capitalism versus being driven by short-term results. It's easy to say that revenue lines are disappearing, therefore let's focus on what's inside our control, costs are within our control, so let's kind of roll out another wave of redundancy. It is possibly instinctive, it is possibly doesn't take too much of thought, but this is where I think it possibly brings the two colors of the organization to play. Not to say that those who've gone through a redundancy program are intrinsically flawed, but I think this creates an opportunity for companies to think beyond the immediate pressures of the bottom line. And I'm very energized by the example of this UK company Dyson, where I think in 2 weeks they turned their assembly line into something that produces sanitizers and masks. Now this is a classic example of being there for the communities when they really need it. So I think that's one hope that I have, is that we get a kind. And the last one is about trust. And Alok, my view on this is that how we engage with our colleagues right now, how we engage or how we see our companies, their actions now, is going to make or mar about how we identify ourselves with this organization that is our employer. And I guess if we as leaders can demonstrate ethical leadership, my sense is that element of trust between colleagues, to the company, I think is just going to nurture. So 3 things I'm hopeful for. I'm hopeful that people are a lot more satisfied with their jobs. I'm hopeful that this is there are lots and lots of examples of ethical leadership that will come to fore. And frankly, I think, trust will all, this will be a gentler economy in my mind.
So it has answered to an extent my next question, which I was planning to put to you. But I would like you to talk more about one thing. So the question, it was like, how do you redefine the leadership? And you answered some of it. But the most important part is, be it a leader on an organization or anything, it starts with the single person. It's like me, one person somewhere, and it's always a collection of people, which makes an organization. And it's very important that a person has to know how to lead themselves first before they can even talk about leading anybody else. I just want to understand from your end, you're a leader of a large corporate. You can easily articulate about leading a company, but most of the people who are listening to us and who are looking at us are individuals first. And this is where it comes, how do you recommend them to lead themselves first so that they can not only overcome this crisis and this problem, but also emerge out to be successful leaders of corporate worlds and organizations at a later date?
You know what, Alok? I think it's
So that's
fascinating that you
advice to
talk about leadership as starting from leading oneself, and that is it is a great place to start, and I think is possibly very fundamental. Why should anyone be led by you? I think in our company, and I think it is true for any company worth its salt, the first this is an article in the HBR by two well-known researchers. Apart from, we tend to be fascinated by the concept of vision, energy, strategic direction, and all that. So the first 101 we give our staff is, why should anyone be led by you? Please write what your leadership purpose is. It's a statement of intent. What do you want to be known for as you navigate this piece? So it's fascinating that you start with that. One aspect I'll touch upon, and I think maybe we can build on that with both Shashank and Pankaj as well. I think one is, you think about this word professional, Alok. I think we in the early version of the word professional, we used to use that in the context of defining standards of performance or excellence. Yeah, this is if you called somebody a professional, she is meant to be reliable, of high integrity, of high standards. That's how we treat somebody as a professional. Then what happened, you kind of used that as you weaponized it in some sense. What do I mean by that? You use that as a criteria to kind of have people confirm. For example, I don't know, maybe it is in vogue, but at least it is there in the companies that I worked for. Somebody who's an investment banker, suited, booted, you kind of define what a professional means in terms of, how they come across, or, how they dress themselves. And then you use that, when I said weaponized, you use that to weed out people as well. No, I don't think he or she will fit our culture because I don't see the commitment, integrity, etc. Yeah, you started somewhere and you kind of turned it into a weapon, and almost immediately you kind of said that a professional is somebody who does not bring his or her emotions to the workplace. It's a natural progression we have made from what it was to where it is. Now, if you ask any manager, what is his advice to somebody who asks, how do I deal with my emotions at the workplace? Better don't bring it to the workplace. I think that's the advice that I think most people give. And frankly, if we are at this situation dealing with our own human fragility and not to be human about it, I mean, this is like, calling robots into play. So I think that is what I'm thinking about in terms of companies. I think how it is important to stay vested in the software aspects or the software of the company, culture, do we, some of those difficult questions. What does transparency?
I had a very good thing I remembered, and I thought I must mention. So I was working with Mukesh Ambani in Reliance. So I was very often going to his office. So in one of the meeting, he asked a question. Do you know what do you mean by a professional? So everyone, just like that, yes, somebody committed, this, that, all definition. He said, no, a professional means you're heartless. Okay. And I'm proud to say that I am not a professional. Okay. So that was the definition put in by this. I'm not a heartless person, because as soon as you say that you are a professional, you tend to become heartless. And this is where the leadership really means a lot. If you lose your heart, you don't see in what people in. You can imagine a company like Reliance, people outside may talk anything, but they have one of the lowest attrition in the market today. This is something very unique about them. And I worked there for many years, and I know why that happens. Because irrespective of all the clutter and everything, people talk to each other more heart to heart. So that is the basic fundamental difference, and it comes from the top. So, moving ahead on that, Shashank, I will come to you now for a small last, few advices before I move to the second round. Is that, how do you, in your opinion, because you see what is happening, we are talking about being professional, about individual. These are the times when things have become bad to worse in many cases, especially individual health, mental health. People started committing suicides, and there are a lot of breakups happening. Okay. Finland, my colleague there in Finland was telling the record breakup happening because of COVID. So what is your suggestion in small, whatever you can tell to our colleagues who are listening to us, what we should be doing to improve our mental health, to be sane and to be positive and to be successful in what we are doing to lead ourselves in your opinion, please?
Well, it's a very tough question to answer, because mental health by itself is a very wide subject. But I'll go back to what all of us know, what we might have studied as part of our management school, was Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I think people who felt that they were getting closer to the top of the pyramid of the Maslow's hierarchy have all been sliding downwards now. There's a lot more existential threat that is there. So the psychological and the physical safety has become more paramount compared to the fulfillment that people were looking at. And that's because there's a true threat to life, not just to yours, because you could die anytime. You could meet up with an accident, you could fall sick, whatever. But today you have a risk that you can fall sick and you can bring the sickness back home and infect everybody in your network. So I think that's a major difference between this crisis than anything else that exists. Far many more people have died by other means, than they have actually died out of COVID. And so therefore, 2-3 things, and I can only say what works for me, and because I'm not a psychologist. But I would say, the TV news are some of the most crappiest information that you can get. Okay,
Yeah,
get
right.
off them. Many of us used to be news junkies, and you'd watch news in the morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you get the time in your office. I have just switched off from TV news, because all you get there is things that are only, how does it matter what the number of COVID cases are? How does it, can you control it? You can't do anything about it, barring that you could protect yourself. You could make all the efforts that you can do so that you don't get infected, or your near and dear people are not infected with. I think that's one that you could do, is to protect yourself from the influx of information, which has nothing to do with your well-being. The second I would say is, a healthy mind resides in a healthy body. And so take care of your physical well-being. And you don't necessarily need to go to a gym to remain fit. There are many things that you can do at your home, where you live in your own communities. And so do that, engage in some physical activities. And third is, I think, and this is the era of already people had more friends virtually than they had in real lives. We are also seeing now our colleagues becoming more virtual than real. Find those avenues of reaching out into your networks. I've like, for example, personally, what I used to do when there's a good friend's birthday, I would maybe send a WhatsApp message, and because you're busy and you don't know whether that person is free or not. But today I make sure that I call the person. I speak. I mean, it takes 2 minutes, but it gives you so much of warmth. It gives you happiness. So I think reach out as much as you can. Then the other aspects of being grateful, what Ram talked about, I think many of us, and especially all the people who are on this call here, are amongst that very small percentage of people on the planet who are privileged enough to have access to this kind of conversation, which means you are at a certain level of livelihood and status in your life, where you're not really worried about when your next meal is going to come out for. So give back to the community. It will give you a lot of peace and satisfaction and happiness. And then find out other avenues of relaxation. You're spending a lot more time with your family. How can you make it more constructive? How do you not get into the face of each other just to get into an argument, but how do you become much more aligned to, earlier, when you used to work from home and your child starts to scream or fight amongst themselves, you'd get agitated and angry about it. Uh, but that's a way of life. Accept it. If the mixer starts to go up right when you're going to be talking with your manager, I think it's fine, because in his house also you would have similar situations. So there's a lot more, if you become more empathic to the entire situation here, I think you will be a lot more at peace, and you can avoid a lot of mental challenges that we would face in the face of how you're sliding down the Maslow's hierarchy.
So, there was a joke which came, but I think it's a more of reality that, people were talking on a video conference. And since it was everyday affair for husband, wife in every houses, there is a kitchen and there is a cooker, whistle going on and off. Suddenly wife asks, husband, how many whistles have happened? Now the guy is like, but, I'm busy with a meeting. On the other side, the manager calls and says, three, so, so you can understand, so it's like, you have to release your pressure and tension by telling, it's a word, let children be there, let my kitchen be there, but I'm there with ease. Let people accept the way we are. We try our best to be, and when we ease up, when we accept things the way it is, automatically things will start easing out. Automatically
and I think Ram said this earlier, it is not just your word. And so I think we need to learn to coexist a lot more. Earlier
Correct.
people used to get frustrated even in their offices that, that person is talking on the phone so loudly, I can't concentrate on my work.
Correct.
Today you've got your child doing your online classes, your
Correct.
wife on a call, and you are doing your work. The only thing that you can do is peacefully coexist.
Correct. Yeah, few people do choose the other way around. But now I'll come to the second round questions. I'll come back to Ram on this, because while we have spoken about more on the macro level, the second round is more about focused on micro level, which is actually impacting people on the ground. See, Barclays is a big employer in India, and we see it as always a dipstick to understand how the world is actually, working out. So it is like, today, IT industry is one of the largest employment generator, but dipping global business, it's hammering this industry very badly. So how do you see the future of IT industry and the new mindset and skills that will be needed for a successful employee in the future term? So what do you see that? Because there are a lot of people who are losing jobs, and it's a reality. So I'm from IT industry, and I think we all have direct or indirect connection to IT industry. So how do you see the future of the IT industry and the new mindset and skills that will be needed for a successful employee of future in this domain?
Okay, Alok. So just broad level statements on the IT industry. You said that right. I think it is one of the crown jewels in our economy, contributing, I think, about 7% odd. I think the expectation was that it would have gone up to double digit by 2025 or so. It generates about 4.5 million jobs in the country. And I think very similar to the macroeconomic situation in the country, I think these are also, there are forces at play which actually, predict contraction. There are also opportunities inside all of that. So broad brush, it is likely to be idiosyncratic depending upon whether a particular firm is able to maximize the opportunities in all of this. Yeah. So roughly, I think in terms of trends opposing, what shall I say, headwinds, pipeline is taking longer to execute. Decision cycles in corporates where these technology firms support, I think that is elongating. IT spends, we spoke about in the earlier round about how when revenues are not under control, people tend to, try to control what they can. Cost line is, or discretionary spends are easy to control, and therefore some of those projects, like I said, engine B work is certainly coming down. I think that is one thing we can. The other thing that's also happening, and I think it was there in the statement of an IT major recently when they announced their results, is also I think there's a pricing compression as well, because every corporate is trying to renegotiate the proposal. So these are all possibly headwinds. But what are the tailwinds? And you spoke about one, Alok, which is this thing about, I think our drive towards digital has only gotten accelerated. People talk about what we may have achieved in 30 years. I think we've kind of done in the last 3 months. It's just a way of explaining how the entire thing has gotten accelerated. Then, as and when this distributed working operating model has become almost like a, work anywhere mantra, and that requires investment in cloud applications, data services, applications that are, that are in the sweet spot of some of the IT companies. Yeah, so I would think that there are both trends, there are headwinds and tailwinds. I think idiosyncratically, I think you will see the success stories play out. You talked about mindset. In that, I would talk about three things from a employee standpoint of view. I would think of CPR. The cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So I have used three just so that it is easy for people to understand. One is think about community as in relationships, network of support. That's going to be very important. Stay focused on that. The second one on P is purpose. Try and find out, this is like the great pause, as has been called. People are using this as an opportunity to reinvent themselves. Companies are doing it. This is an opportunity for us as participants in the industry to rethink about how do we want to reinvent ourselves. So finding the why for all that we're trying to do. I think that would be the second one. And the third one, most often talked about, resilience. I like to think about it like the way Dr. Nassim Taleb says about it, which is resilience typically means after the stress factors are removed, you go back to normal. I would like to think of anti-fragility where, like going to the gym, when you work out, you apply, some stress. Once you remove the stress, the muscles grow. So you not only bounce back, but you become better from where you were. So I think these are three things that I think mindset-wise, if all of us as participants in the industry can think about, I think that would stand us in good stead.
Perfect. So thank you, Ram, very apt answer for that. And but the worries are big, and the biggest worry what we see is that what we call as the collateral damages, which happens. Something happened, virus came, and the collateral damage, like a house of cards, it just stuck one after another, it goes down. And my question to Pankaj is, because Pankaj, I see you a bit differently here, because one thing is, unfortunately, I keep thinking you as a strategist. So it is unfortunate or fortunate, I don't know, but then this is how it is. And I always look forward, a strategist must be thinking forward and, telling others. One of the biggest collateral damages for youths, because you are passionate about the subject of youth, women empowerment, wellness. And the biggest challenge, what we see today, is for youth who don't get jobs now. There is no opening. People are, all in the market, those who had jobs. Who will take these freshers who are not experienced? And I just wanted to understand, in your opinion, what would be the future of these young people in the given scenario, and how they can cope up with it, because a lot of them will have a problem. Mentally they will be very stressed out. The parents will be stressed out. So what's your thought of that?
I think one of the things, and I think I'm not the first one to say it, I think if you look at just our employment, 95% is still informal in our country. Some of us look at our industry and forget that, the large mass is actually, in the informal sector. So I actually look at this, that, our country is actually a entrepreneurial country already. We don't realize it because all of those people don't have jobs. So if they don't have jobs, then they should be entrepreneurs, I think, in whichever way that you can call it. So I would say, how do we make the mindset of people to be job creators versus job seekers? So I would say we have to start there. Unlike the previous generation, where we forced Ram and myself and Shashank to say that you won't get married till you get a job, I think we have to tell our kids that entrepreneurship is the key. You need to create jobs, and whatever that might be. You could be a gig economy worker. That's an entrepreneur. Anything. So I think we have, and that I think brings the locus of control back on the individual. Because when you are a seeker, you are dependent on someone else. When you are a creator, you are dependent on yourself. And I think that's the same concept of a go-getter to a go-giver. When you are a go-getter, you have to wait for someone to give you something, then only you get it. But if you are a go-giver, you have the option to give it away. So I think we have to change some fundamental mindsets from job seeker to a creator, from a go-getter to a go-giver, because the future is very uncertain and very difficult. And the best is to, snatch back control to yourself, which we had given away. See, in a normal cruise control, even if you had given away control, you can cruise because there are enough people who will take you along. Today, I think everyone will have to fend for themselves. So we all have to make people snatch that control back into inside and get that confidence to drive forward. Now, these are very hard, things to follow in the short run. If you just lost your job yesterday, this will sound like Gita ka Gyan, and you'll say, I can't eat what you just said. But unfortunately, I have no better thing to say on this topic than to say, how do you first become more, conscious that it's for you to do something and there is no one out there who will create something, because that's how the world has become. And we need to first acknowledge it and start to feel that way. The second topic you mentioned, wellness, and I think that's critical as well. And this is another, all of us MBAs create frameworks. So I can't help, because you touched wellness, I have to give a framework now. And Ram gave a framework of three, CPR.
Sure.
My health or wellness framework is 1H and 3 E's. And we are all told that, three things stick to you do that. So H is the constant and E's are the variables. So my, framework is, H is really heredity. So my dad and my whole family has high cholesterol. I can't do anything about it. So you need to be aware of your hereditary, diabetes, anything, and just make sure that you don't, go let it go out of control. You can't do anything. So that is something to just keep in mind. But the 3 E's that are in control are eating, exercising, and expressing. With the food that you eat, the exercise that you do, and how you think and how you express yourself. And all these three vectors, I think there is no one answer. On eating, you can, I have friends who eat one big meal in some 8-hour window, call it intermittent fasting. There are others who eat every 2 hours. Both work very well, I think, right? So you have to figure out your own piece with what works for you. Similarly, exercising, I love running, badminton, whatever. My wife hates all of those, but she likes yoga. Someone else likes golf, whatever it is. So find your, exercising, whatever that is. Expressing is the hard part. And I think we did touch upon that with this whole model of, people consuming so much. So I look at it this way, that all us humans were created in this times of scarcity, and now we are in time of abundance. So whether eating or consuming information, we have to be on a diet. We can't go to a buffet and consume everything just because it is free. We can't read all WhatsApp messages just because it is available to us, right? So I have created a very simple funda of keeping it in a JOMO mode instead of a FOMO mode, joy of missing out. So I tell people I have no clue what is happening on the WhatsApp group. But if you tell me, call me and say I have posted something on the WhatsApp group, then I will go read it. So I'm making it hard for people to make me believe that I will read. So I don't read anything. I don't watch any TV. And half the time I don't know anything. And just like Shashank said, someone in the US asked me yesterday, so how's the cases doing? I said, I don't track it. He said, oh, why are you not tracking it? I said, because I would track it for two reasons. One is, if I was a policymaker, I'll make policies. Unfortunately, I'm not. Two, if I have to, save myself or whatever, that anyway I have taken care of. I'm not going out at all. So I don't care. You can also read the same news and you can find the information. It doesn't matter to me. So I don't seek information till I think I need it. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And unfortunately or fortunately, I've been doing it for the last 10 years. Now this COVID has, highlighted some of these things. I keep telling people, COVID is just the same thing happening on steroid. These trends are always there. There's nothing new which is happening. All of these things are always happening. It is just happening to everyone at the same time. So it's a good experiment to me. And to me, I will, refer to Ram's talk of anti-fragility. I think this is a blessing in disguise. I think we should look at it because this trend was always there. Let this develop our muscles, make us anti-fragile for the future, which is going to be in this direction anyway.
Absolutely. Rather, yeah, it's a very good advice. But my own experience is that when I go to colleges to pick up the students, what I found was that most of them are trained, taught, and educated to face interviews. Right. And it's like you get a job. And in some cases, somebody came and said, I have a degree, give me a job. So the whole focus was, I have a degree, give me a job. And, sometime back, we heard that Pakistan has the largest number of pilots who don't have any kind of training. So truck driver became a pilot. Now imagine, so the whole world is banning them. But this kind of things had kind of got ingrained in the minds of people. And probably this is a time where probably everyone has to think that it is not about a degree. It's all about attitude. It's all about learning quickly, and that's framing the next question to Shashank, because he's an HR
Alok,
person. Hmm.
I have to touch upon one other topic, which is
Yeah, sure.
gender, because we
Yeah.
don't have gender diversity on this panel. So I can't,
Ah,
over at least talking about that topic, which is very close to me. But I have two daughters, so
please, please,
that
please go ahead.
on that topic again, I have a theory, which is that we all talk about diversity. We need, and I'm right now I'm just talking about diversity on gender, and there are other kinds of diversity. That why are women not so much there in the workforce? And my theory is as under that in the past the what was the source of power in a society in the good old days, hunter gatherer, you have to go hunt, get food. So the guy used to go hunt because they had the muscles, and they sort of had slightly more power because you were getting food. Then it was all about capturing territory. You were the king, you went to fight wars, the woman was at home. Again, you somehow had a competitive advantage because you were the one who was going out and capturing. Then the machines and factories came in. Then again, the bugger went out and went to the factory and created goods and brought in the money. So all these three phases, the man somehow had slightly more advantage in the things that were required by the family or the society and did that. Now in this cognitive world, it's all just the brain, IQ and EQ. And I think most
True.
of us agree in my, all my school, there was a girl and I was in science. She was always the topper. So women actually have had good, STEM, degree. And on EQ, though we don't
Mhm.
even debate, they have it. So the question is always, was in my mind saying if they have the better raw material, why are they, being, why are we being asked to give them opportunity? I mean, they should be ahead of us. So the theory that I have is that they want to succeed in 5 different subjects and get distinction. Good mother, good daughter, good daughter-in-law, all of those things. So I want 75 plus in every subject. Men have always succeeded in one thing: hunting, going to factory,
Yes.
winning the war, career, become CEO. That's one. So
Yes.
when
Yes.
inferior raw material applied to a single-minded focus gives you the success. So what does it mean for men and women in future? So my personal view is that men can become more broad based. यार ये जीना भी कोई जीना है लल्लू. Can you not be a good brother, good friend, good father, good many other things? Why do you have to just a career guy CEO? You can be many other things. So that is the suggestion for them to think about yourself as a more broader person and do all of those things. And for women, once in a while in the career race, you can also delegate some of the household work to maid, to mother-in-law, to stay-at-home mom next door or whoever. And for a while, you can also run that race for a while, and then you can go back to doing something else. You can delegate a lot. You can do it in office. You can do it at home. So I think both genders can come more closer to the center and be more equal participants in this future world than we have been in the past.
Actually, it is already happening. So, because the times are teaching us big time and very rapidly. So that's the good part of it. And this is where I came from, that not only the gender diversity, but also, the mindset before this COVID was, I have a degree, give me a job, and I'm at more at relief because I have 10 servants to work for me. People never thought of what can happen if this thing doesn't exist. So this is where my next question coming to Shashank, what are the key behavioral and technical skills? Because you're an HR person and you will be able to tell behavioral skills much better, both theory and practical. So what are the key behavioral and technical skills that will be an insurance to an existing employee or a job seeker for post-COVID scenario? You can say in IT domain, even in case if you want to be specific, but it's very important because people don't have much time. And I would like to give them a prescription. This is something you can ensure yourself better. Otherwise, forget about it. Struggle, start from zero back again. So Shashank, your advice, please.
So Alok, my perspective is that some of the basic skills that people need to succeed have nothing to do with time. They've always been there. Adaptability, flexibility, learnability. They have been there 25 years back when we started our career. They were the essentials of behavioral trends and traits that you needed to be successful. I think the context is slightly different today. So today we have access to a lot of data, a lot of information, and that is not sufficient. And therefore, the art of storytelling is going to be one of the most vital skills that people need to have. Just like how Pankaj just narrated painted a picture of the gender diversity differences that we have and how things have been. I think that is something that is going to be more and more crucial in the times to come, because we'll also have lesser time, and therefore somebody has to tell that story of megabytes of data into small bytes quickly. Second is going to be emotional intelligence. There's going to be so much of artificial intelligence. There's so much of cognitive information that we are going to have. You need to have much more stronger emotional intelligence to be able to deal with that. Third, in my opinion, is going to be a digital growth mindset, which will work well with design thinking. And that is something I think is going to be very, very important. And the 5 C's that Pankaj talked about, absolutely spot on. Curiosity, uh, compassion, conviction, creativity, and communication. They are, by the way, in my mind, they have always been important. Uh, whether when we were hunters and gatherers, or when we were a farming community, or manufacturing, or now in a digital era, I think they are always going to be important. More important now in the context of time is going to be virtual team management, and engagement of people in a virtual setting, and still keeping your sanity is going to be some of the key skills that you will need as an individual. And underlying this is going to be what Ram referred to earlier, anti-fragility or resilience, because what has changed is the speed of change. World has always been VUCA. In every era, if you were to be there at that moment, the world was always volatile and uncertain and chaotic, but the change, the speed of VUCA is perhaps higher, and therefore uh, the level of resilience that people need to have to be able to cope up with that is of a higher degree. Anti-fragility, for your ability to bounce back from a setback. We have had COVID now. How do we get back quickly? And you see that, by the way, it's a credit to the resilience of the human race. And I am an eternal optimist. I think human race is designed to beat all odds, right from its inception, and it will. And that is because there is so much of resilience inbuilt into our minds. I think so. On the behavioral side, I think these are going to be the top skills that you will need. I'm not so much worried about the technical skills that people will need, because they will keep evolving. Technology is changing so rapidly. Today, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and RPA and IoT. Tomorrow, there'll be something else. 2 years back, people were talking big about blockchain, and usse pehle, there was something else. I'm not so much worried about technical skills. So long we display these 5 skills, we display the adaptability and flexibility and the resilience. Um, Technical skills are going to be relatively easier to master.
Got it. So you are very right, because it's more about attitude. And unfortunately, most of the organizations in India, they have no meter to figure out what the attitude of a person is. They all go for checking their skills, because attitude was a given thing earlier. But I think now the whole thing is reversed. Companies will look more for attitude than technical skills, because be it startup, and I meet so many startup companies. One thing which I find, that most of the startup which go down is because of the attitude of the founders. One of the key reasons of going down. It was never about money. It was not about idea. It was about the attitude.
And Alok, think of it. All of us would have interviewed thousands of people in our careers, right? When you make a choice between two last candidates, invariably it is the attitude and aptitude is what makes the difference, right? We can't. It's not easy to quantify and say this is what it is. It perhaps comes from your gut. Maybe it will become a little bit more scientific over a period of time to say, okay, this guy has 3.7 on versus somebody at 4.1.
Correct. Again, even if it is scientific, it will be an intelligent pointer. You can't replace human experience at any point of time. So we have come to an end with the session here, and we will move to the question answer, the last say around 10 to 15 minutes, and some pretty interesting questions have come, and I will put the question back to you, Shashank, because there is a question with respect to HR here. So one of our participants come and said, what are the top challenges and opportunities organizations have in the recovery from a talent workforce standpoint, and how can HR function lead the recovery?
I think the foremost is in the fact that I answered in my first question was work anywhere, anytime. So organizations can be agnostic to locations going forward, which means for organizations, the talent is available all over the world. It doesn't matter whether you live in Timbuktu. I mean, of course, there's a visa requirement and work permit requirement, but you could be in Raipur or Chandigarh or Kolkata or Hyderabad or Pune. It doesn't matter. I mean, many companies have struggled to hire people from tier 2, tier 3 cities, and there is immense talent available. I think this opens up the door, because now we certainly know that this works. And with employees becoming more accountable, more collaboration tools available, this is completely doable. So I think that's the biggest change that we will see. And of course, for organizations, it's going to be savings on the real estate cost that they will find with this.
Yeah, absolutely. Organizations will save on real estate, but somebody else will lose on it. So, it once again, some part of the economy takes a beating.
It's part of the evolution. Something has to
Absolutely.
give to get something, right? So
Yeah, something has to go away. So that's the thing. But again, no, Ram, coming to you, there is an interesting question. Uh, is going digital inversely proportional to human jobs? Like, for example, ATM machine came, tellers are now history. So now with this COVID, more and more digital means, are we going to let go many jobs, never to return back? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, this is the classic scenario, right? The rise of the robos. So yes, there is a scenario out there where possibly all of us will be replaced by machines. But where I sit in this discussion is somewhere in the middle, on what is commonly called as assisted intelligence, right? You try and get the best out of what the machines can do, which is make insight out of volumes of data, and use some of what look you alluded to earlier in response to what Shashank was responding to, which is about gut intuition, the human elements of it, and try and make that as assisted intelligence. Research currently suggests that, I think there was something around, I think it was Harvard research, this was around diagnosis, where I think the machine on its own came with lower than where the humans were, but combined, I think both of them took their success rate higher than whether it was individually done by the human or by the machine. So I sit in that place, in the middle of the road. Assisted intelligence is my prediction for the future.
Yeah, so
Alok,
ideally,
if
yeah,
I could respond on
please.
that, I also
Absolutely.
feel that there are a lot of complementarities between machines and humans, and they will come together a lot more. Like for example, the example that Ram gave about the machine doing the sensing and checking out faster diagnosis of cancer, because a doctor would take thousands of cases to refer to something, and the machine is just doing pattern recognition and giving an outcome. But the treatment diagnosis and the treatment is something that the doctor would do far better, because he or she has the experience of how the biochemistry of the patient operates. And the other example that you talked about, the ATMs took away the jobs of the tellers, but you see the converse. As many ATMs opened up, there are far many more bank branches that have opened up and mushroomed all over the world, not just about India. So maybe what will also happen is that the jobs become mature, and they take a different shape and form. Like I said
Mhm.
earlier, I'm an eternal optimist. I feel that humans evolve faster, and they evolve to the change. And but it's important to get that stimuli. People would have kept doing, counting the notes on their own, but then they found better ways to deal with that, and so the big part of the banks no longer deal with just giving away cash any longer.
All right. So that's interesting. And we have around 5 to 7 minutes, and I would like to cram in 2, 3 questions. One question was put in by one of our participants, and Pankaj already answered, but for the benefit of others to know more, I'm just putting it in my own words. So it's like, once the medicine of corona comes and things happen, do you think that the buying pattern and everything goes back to normal, or it will be a new normal? What do you think will be the situation coming in?
I think, we are a very adjusting race, and Shashank also alluded to that. I think in 18 months, which is what people are saying, this medicine will come, and I don't know whether it will come to everyone in that time frame or not. By that time, we would have all adjusted to this new normal. We would have forgotten what 2019 looked like. So I don't think
Hmm.
there'll be many people remembering what happened. We will be thinking from there on. So I believe that we are all very resilient. And even in this 3, 4 months, a lot of people have become so comfortable that we were to ask them to come to office on a daily basis. I think they'll complain. They'll say, no. At the same time, there are enough who want to come to office sometimes. I think so. I think this has given just a variety of choices. I don't think it is 0 or 1. We all, we have to think in 50 shades of gray. And now different organization might not choose all 50, They might choose still to 5, and that's up to them. But I do think that this has just opened a lot of experimentation. All shades are available. You make your choice.
All right. Uh, I would rather put a question back to you, Pankaj. One of our attendees is putting a very intriguing question, and I think it's open, Shashank and Ram, if you want, you can also answer. It says that one of the very intriguing questions that I face in my career advancement is a lot of career paths are available now on the internet to choose. And I feel very confused which one to choose to jump in because every domain seems to be appealing. So, that's a dilemma for a young people, and they keep experimenting, and after some time they are even more lost. So, I
That was
start
my
with Pankaj.
second C of conviction, belief in yourself. And I tell people that long ago I started to play golf because people were telling me that that's the way to rise up the corporate ladder, and I hated it, and I felt that it was too difficult. I gave it up. I started running, and I love it. I have not tried hockey or tennis. So I think the point I'm making is try something. When you like it, continue with it. We will not be everything and everyone in one lifetime. So let's not get confused that there are 5,000 things we haven't done. Let's focus on the one thing that we are enjoying doing. That's how I look at it.
Mm, all right,
And Alok, what I
absolutely.
would add to it is,
Yeah, yeah.
don't outsource the problem to anybody else. I think a lot of times we have a belief that my manager will tell me what is right for me. My company will train me. It's your life. You deal with it. It's your complexity. You're unique. So don't look at another template. And I keep saying I hate templates for that reason. Is that because it just stereotypes into doing things. I have to great that you are born in an era where there's abundance of opportunities available. So you're no longer between a Vespa and a Lambretta, or an ambassador, or a Premier Padmini. You have wider choice to make. Enjoy that choice, just like what Pankaj said. Try it out, but ultimately think about what works for you rather than what somebody else is buying or somebody else is thinking.
So, a question back to you, Shashank, because in the HR, one of our person comes and says, may I please ask the panelist as to suggest prescription for the new generation, which is fearing procuring jobs, especially in the area of HR because of AI and machine learning.
Sorry, I didn't get the question, Alok.
So say that, may I ask the panelists as to suggest a prescription for the new generation, which is fearing procuring jobs, mainly in the area of HR because of AI and machine learning, because now it seems the human mind can be easily read, why am I needed? That is the kind of a question. So,
I think we answered this earlier. No job is going to be completely. None of the jobs are going away completely. The jobs are evolving. So machine may replace some part of repetitive jobs that you do, but there is a lot more that you can do at a higher level, where your human instincts, your ability to relate and connect with people in real or virtual world is going to be valuable. So I don't think there's a prescription. I mean, again, like I said, I don't comply to templates, and I don't like to give prescriptions to people. It's you choose what works for you. Just don't look at somebody, don't look at your neighbor and say, how did he make his life? He made it the way he made it. Doesn't matter.
So, while there is another question also pointed at you, I would ask both Pankaj and you, because it's a question which needs a probably broader answer, and we'll try to make this the last one. So, I have a question. Apart from virtual hiring, how do you see COVID as a challenge in molding the organization? What activities or strategies do you suggest for startups, and how will that be different from an MNC? So it is a bit wide question, and that is why I'm putting it. How many things can go virtual, which a startup can adopt? So in a way, I would put it this way. What all things can happen virtual? Because corporate means big office, big structure, big thing. But for a startup, how many things can go virtual in your opinion?
I think when people say virtual and physical, somehow they are still thinking in binary terms.
Yeah.
Every job will, like I said, those 50 shades of gray. I have seen so many startups where a coder job, you can stay 4 days at home and 1 day at work. A delivery boy's job has to be entirely outside on the field. So I think it relates to the nature of the job, and in some cases the individual has a choice. I have folks on my own team who love to spend, they would, given a choice, spend half the time at home and half the time in office. And there are, all kinds of those things. So I think this is all providing an opportunity for people to experiment. So I think my personal view is organization to take this opportunity to see how people thrive the best and make policies accordingly. It's a true agile way versus thinking about that waterfall model that I know these are the three choices, thou shalt choose one. I would say let's observe, just like people do experiments, and based on that, allow things to happen. But that's like probably a maverick ideal world, but that's what I think.
Perfect. So, before I end it, I just happened to see one name popping up, and I remember she's a principal of a college, really worried about the future of children who are studying. And so I just want to put up a question on behalf of her to you all, and next, anybody can answer it. Uh, those people who are passing out, what is that one or two things they should be doing uh, to enhance their skills, which can actually sell in short term for them? Because even a small success really matters, because it is very difficult for young people to suddenly reorient themselves so quickly. As human race can really do many things, but still, as human beings, the first focus goes to bringing back people who have lost jobs. But young people, still, they will be left out, especially from places like Patna, Lucknow, and Jaipur and hinterland, where everyone migrate to cities like Pune and Bangalore and Delhi for jobs. And the challenge is even bigger there. So it is just a very open question. What students there should be doing uh, to see that they not only can get a job, probably they can do things differently to solve this problem permanently.
I have been, approached by a lot of people who have either lost jobs or students and all of that. And my view has been that, many jobs are lost forever. Some are going to come back, but you don't control it. So I think it again also slightly depends on your own financial position and what you can do. But my recommendation has been try to make yourself relevant and productive, not by doing Coursera courses, but by doing something really which makes an impact, where you can see the value of it, whether it is a customer, help your father in his shop if that is what it is, help a friend, help someone, do something where you are able to contribute in some way and get the feedback real time. And that could be anything. So in my mind, I have had many friends in many different places that you mentioned, and I said just find a way to be productive. Maybe help your mom in her daily chores if that's what it is, if you can't find anything else. But do something, for God's sake. Don't keep just applying for the job and keep waiting that one day I'll get a job. Do that, but you can't do that full time. So I do think that again, that maybe you can call it a go giver or a go contributor, but being action oriented, bias to action is very critical, because it's very easy to lose hope and not do something. And when you are contributing and doing something, even if it is for free, it is satisfying, it is creating value. And like the Apple story of, you don't know when that cursive writing course will help you in the future.
Perfect. So while I have many more questions which are now appearing, I think we are already short of time. We've already overshot our discussion by 5 minutes. And I would, while I would have loved to continue and get all the answers, but for the benefit of time and be more disciplined, because I know your time is precious. Thank you so much for taking out this time and spending it so nicely with and all of us, with our participants, and giving so valuable input. I'm sure they're going to benefit a lot of it. And with that, I would like to thank all three of you, Pankaj, Shashank, and Ram, for really giving so great insights. And we will look forward for many more bites from your side to the young people, to the younger generation, to the job seekers, because they all aspire to be someone like you one day. And I wish, yes, they get all that opportunity to be one like you, not one day, but sooner that one day comes. So with that, I thank all of you once again. Thank you for being part of this panel. And we really enjoyed your company. Thank you once again.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Alok.
Alok. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Pankaj, Ram.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.